What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back. Today we're going to discuss about the meta. The new Banlist dropped and now it's time to see exactly what the new decks are going to be the most playable ones for the upcoming format. And to be honest, I don't think the list has changed like that much. Maybe the order is the one that changed the most, and we're still going to be experiencing a really great format. And now the Dragon Link is not like as oppressive as it used to be. I don't think that any of the decks I'm going to mention in this list are like super oppressive or super unfair. I think everything is pretty balanced, so Konami has done a really good job, and I think that we're going to be seeing a really good format to come. So now, before we begin with the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the top 10 decks of the July 2021 format. Number 10, Sky Striker. So the reason I'm putting Sky Striker here is not really because I think it's going to be that good of a deck, it's mainly because I want to talk about it. I think that it's mostly going to be represented in the beginning of the format because people are going to try it out to see if it's good anymore, but trust me, it isn't. So yeah, we're going to see it a lot at the beginning of the format, and as long as people keep realizing that the deck doesn't do much, they're just gonna switch decks and go into something better. But you're going to see it a lot in the beginning, so be careful about that. And now let's talk a little bit about the deck. So everyone is freaking out. Everyone thinks that Konami has done the biggest mistake like since they brought back Snatch Steal back like how many years ago. And yeah, they think that this card is going to completely break the format. Guys, now let's not hype things that used to be hype just because they used to be. This card was never at 1, first of all. We've always had it at 3 before it outright got banned, so we don't really know how good it is at 1. But to be honest, the OCG has shown us that this deck is not really as unfair as we think. Because the reason this card got banned in the first place is not because Sky Striker was so good, it's because it was being splashed in everything. But one engage pretty much guarantees that people may try to splash it, but it's not going to be good, so they're going to take it out of their decks very, very quickly. So that problem is out of the way. And the pure Sky Strikers, you're going to see a lot of YouTubers out there like hyping the card, saying that it's so good. You will see like decks and replays with the card, and how conveniently that every replay that you will see, they have hard drawn this one engage in their opening hands. No big surprise now. So let's take a look at how the deck functions. So the deck is going to be a really good control deck, but if you are so afraid of the deck, just one copy of DD Crow pretty much puts the deck in the state it was before the ban list. Just DD Crow this one engage and you're good to go. There's no way for the card to go back into the graveyard so they can get it back. So the deck is so easy to counter. The deck is not very good going first with one engage because you cannot really get your searches of your Widow Anchors and your Shark Counters consistently with just one engage. So it's not that good going first strategy unless you play like so many floodgates, but at that point any deck can win while sitting under summon limit and there can be only one, so that's not the deck's problem. And going second, the deck does have tools, but the boards that we can make right now are just so oppressive that any deck can break them with Droplet, so making Striker break boards with Droplet and using Afterburners to pop the cards is no different than using like Droplet and Raigeki in pretty much any other deck to break a board. So the deck is decent, but guys, just stop. Like, take a break. I know that the community just loves hyping stuff, and then people forget about it after 2 weeks after the ban list drops when they start complaining about the actual best decks, which we're going to discuss a little later. So yeah, take a break, just think about it for a second. You will see that in the OCG the deck is more powerful, and here they have Maxi, which is a huge boost for Sky Striker specifically because the deck doesn't care about Maxi and it uses it to its full advantage. We don't even have that here. So yeah, the deck is going to be represented in the beginning of the format. You're going to see it, you're going to think that it's good. It's not. So we get out of the way, let's move on. Number 9, Subterrors. Subterrors did not get hit, and by meaning Subterrors not get hit, I mean Dragoon did not get hit. Some people were saying that Dragoon was okay, some people were saying that Dragoon was too splashable, but Konami decided to leave it for another format, and now we're going to keep seeing it. And especially when we see ban lists that keep hitting stuff and Dragoon doesn't get hit, it's going to see more play every single time. And Subterror, I think, is the deck that uses it the most, because the decks that use Anaconda usually are not the best decks because it's just a supplementary engine to pretty much boost the deck because of the lack of power it has. But in Subterrors, the synergy is just insane. Being able to set your Guru and then flip it face up with your Hidden City while not caring at all about Red Eyes Fusion's restriction is just so great. And Amazement is also an insane boost for the deck, giving it more power, giving it more disruption. The deck is going to be so much better in the next format. I think that this deck, while Dragoon is out, it's still going to be seeing play, and a lot of people are going to prefer to play something like this because it's not a combo-oriented deck and some people like control. And if they don't have access to Eldritch cards because they're too expensive still, then they're going to play Subterrors. Number 8, Salamangreat. Now, if we're about to talk for cards that came off the ban list and we think Engage is the one that's like going to shake the meta, then think about about this. Salamangreat was already a really good deck. Sky Strikers were not a good deck. What do you think is going to happen when you give both of these decks the powerhouse back? Do you think the deck that used to be really good is going to be even better, or do you think that the deck that wasn't really good was going to be better? No, obviously, Salamangreat is going to be such an amazing deck. Just having Stalio gives the deck different kinds of deck building and different deck building paths. Just because you can play rank 3 extender stuff to go for Stalio, the deck makes the deck so much more consistent. It gives the deck a follow-up if you can keep Stalio on the field, and with Bailings and the traps, it's going to stay on the field a lot of the time, even though your opponent is not very difficult to get over it, but just because you can protect with all of your protection cards, and also gives you the access to Jaguar while also using Gazelle to actually send a trap, because without Stalio, if you didn't hard draw the Jaguar to send with something like a Buffalo, you had to send the Jaguar with the Gazelle if you wanted a follow-up, but now you can get the Jaguar with your Stalio, send the trap with your Gazelle, so you can have even more disruption. The deck can even play around Nibiru now, because before, when Stalio was around, we didn't have Gravedigger's Trap Hole, but now with just the Parallel Exceed, you can go into Rafflesia before you do anything. You just summon a Bailings and you go into Rafflesia, and then you can play around Nibiru, which is the bane of this deck's existence. I mean, not always used to be. And now the deck has ways to deal with that. The deck has ways to deal with pretty much anything. It's a really good deck that can fit in a lot of hand traps because of how consistent it is. We're going to see it a lot. It's a budget deck on top of all of that, so people are going to try it out. And yes, I think this deck is going to be a really good deck for the upcoming format. Number 7, Eldritch. Now, I'm putting Eldritch down because even though Eldritch does not get hit directly, the banning of Dryden, I think, makes the best version of Eldritch much worse, because Zodiac Eldritch was probably the go-to deck if you wanted to play the most viable Eldritch variant, and Eldritch is not a deck that in pure version is that good because it's just more like an engine rather than a deck, and Dryden being banned means that you cannot even do that, so you have to adapt. But still, Eldritch is such a splashable engine that you can pretty much throw whatever you want in it. Maybe Dogmaticas will be a thing. I don't even know what people are going to come up with this deck, but still, Eldritch is going to be a really huge deck because it just keeps dodging the ban list. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if it will ever get hit because it's not that broken of an engine. It's just that it's too splashable, but it does have its restrictions, so it's pretty nice. But still, you're going to see Eldritch, and it's going to be a really good deck. Number 6, Dinosaurs. So Dino players are whining because Misk got 1, and guys, you think that dinos are dead, or are you just loving drama? Because dinos are not dead. Come on. The combos you can do with 1 Misk, it's the same that you could do with 3 Misk. Now, the thing is that the deck is more fair than before because you can interact with it, and if you can't search your miscellaneous swords with your fossil deck and you have to search something else, then your opponent can hand trap you, which makes the deck more fair, but the combos are still the same. The ceiling of the deck is still the same. The only thing that Misk getting to 1 does for the deck is making it more vulnerable to hand traps, and also doesn't allow you to always have a guaranteed follow-up in your graveyard, even in the case that your board gets broken. And I think if we're going to talk about combo decks, these combo decks that have like such a good follow-up is what makes a combo deck broken. Look at Emancipators. The deck made a pretty good board, but even if you managed to break through that board before, Block Dragon kept coming back from the grave, giving you more resources, and that's what made the deck broken. If you're going to play hardcore combo deck, when your board gets broken, that should be it, and that's how combo decks should function. This is not a control deck, it's not a grind deck, it's a combo deck. So Dinosaurs, you can play them control if you want. Maybe there are different builds out there, but the one that we've seen recently is the one with Scrap Raptor and Scrap Chimera going for the full combo, and this is still possible. It's still a really good deck. It's still a very high ceiling, and we're going to see it. So stop complaining because Misk went to 1. It just makes the deck more fair. That's all. But still, it's gonna be a really good deck. Number 5, Dragonlink. Dragonlink, I think it's going to adapt to Dragoonity now because we've seen how good Remus is, just being able to search Ravine and then bring this card back. Ravine is not a hard once per turn, so you can search one with Remus, you can search one with Romulus if you want to play multiples. It's such a good deck still, without LP, without Striker Dragon. It's exactly what I said with Dinosaurs. The deck is not as vulnerable, is more vulnerable to hand traps because before with LP you could just get anything you want out of the deck, and also with 1 Striker Dragon it doesn't have a follow-up. If you break the board, the only follow-up it has is the Levied Search with Brotter using Heavenly Spheres, but before you had this on top of being able to go into another copy of Striker Dragon, get back your RMD, get back your Abyss, get back anything you want, and then you could do the same thing all over again. So being these hits that we got just makes Dragonlink fair, because if you break the board, it cannot do anything else. The deck is still going to be very consistent, very powerful. The ceiling of this deck is even higher than Dinosaurs, which is why I'm putting it above Dinosaurs. But still, if you think that you're not going to be seeing Dragonlink anymore just because LP got banned and Striker Dragon went to 1, then you're sadly mistaken. Number 4, Prank Kids. Prank Kids, I think this format have a chance to shine. They have pretty much taken a back seat like for the past couple months just because other decks made their way up. But now, if people adapt with this strategy and they actually managed to make the deck even more consistent and being able to play through hand traps, which is the bigger problem of the deck, because people thought that, oh, we have one-card combos, we don't really need to play extenders. Well, that's wrong, because if you get asked to your one Pranking in the Grave when you go to Meow Meow, then you won't be able to do anything else. So people need to play more copies of the Pandemonium, maybe play Invocations, play more copies of the Continuous Spell. They just need to play more extenders so they can make the deck more resilient. And once this is achieved, the deck can do so much with so little resources. And it's what confines really these other combo decks. Is like Dinosaurs don't really have one-card combos just because you need a Misk and maybe you need a Baby in Your Hand. Dragon Link do not have one-card combos, they need multiple cards. But Prank Kids, if this one card goes uninterrupted, they're gonna do their full combo while still keeping their entire hand into their hand. So pretty much this is why this deck, I think, is going to be a much better combo deck, because it gives you more resources while using less from your hand, so you can keep for the follow-up. So this is why I think Prank Kids are going to be a really good deck. People enjoy playing the deck, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see it much more than we used to. Number 3, Invoke Dogmatica Shadow. People were calling for this deck to get hit, and it didn't. I mean, Meltdown, come on. I'm pretty sure Meltdown is going to get on eventually, but this is not the time yet. So Dogmaticas are going to be really, really good still. Nadir is still at 3, which was pretty much the obvious thing that's going to happen just because of the Megatins. They're not going to get hit anything from that. So this deck is going to be really good, being able to go into Winda, just makes some decks completely unplayable. Being able to go into your Mechaba with only one card engine, then TriBrigade 3 or 4 OTKs is really good. I mean, the deck is pretty much anything. Can do so much with a single copies of cards. And when combine cards like Nadir and then Shadow Fusion and then Alistair and then going to Schism, just with one card you get so many powerhouses with using only one card engines, which is why this deck is really, really good. It's a really good control deck. We're gonna see it a lot, so be prepared for Winda if your deck loses to that. Number 2, pure TriBrigades. So we had TriBrigade Zodiac before, and to be honest, now with Dryden gone, I'm not even sure if Zodiac engine is being used anymore, because Zodiac's is a good engine regardless, but if you don't have Dryden, what does the engine offer going first? Pretty much nothing. You can't make Zeus going first, that's impossible. So you don't really need to play it anymore. If you want to play a more going second variant, then yes, I can see that happening because of Borbo and Zeus, that's pretty good. But TriBrigades are mostly a control deck that tries to go for Revolt and Appaloosa. It used to have a Dryden on the field as well. Now it's not going to have that. It's going to have an Appaloosa and a Revolt, which is still pretty good because the amount of resources the deck can gather with so little cards is insane. Resolving this one Revolt gives you so many grave effects on top of getting a disruption with Shuraik, and then when Shuraik dies, you get even more advantage, and you also have an Appaloosa on top of that. The deck just does so much. The deck is very, very resilient to hand traps with cards like Ferrijit, that even if your effects that go to that banish from the grave to get summon a link, then you can just summon Ferrijit the easy way, and then you can just summon Ferrijit the hard way when that doesn't happen, so you can get even more TriBrigades out of your hand and use this effect again. So I'm not even sure that people complain that this deck loses to one hand trap. Come on, it loses to one Lancia maybe, but there are a lot of decks that lose to these exactly specific hand traps, but still TriBrigade is still going to be a really, really good deck, just that we don't have to deal with Zodiacs and Zeus in this deck, but still Zodiacs might be more of a pure deck now. Going second pure deck for Zeus, we're gonna see that, but not in the TriBrigade versions. And the number 1 best deck of the July 2021 format, we have Drytron. Drytron, I think it's time to become the best deck, because even before when Benton was at 3, I don't think that it ever was solidified as the best deck of the format. It was hit very hard, but I don't think it was because it was the best deck. It's just because the loops with Benton were annoying. And now Drytron with TriBrigades getting the hit with Dryden, I think have the chance to become the best deck, because what Drytron does so well, and it doesn't even get stopped by anything specific, because even if you Dark Ruler or Droplet their field with Beatrice and Ultimateness, they have Surge to 1 Orange Light during their own turn, so even if they don't get the second Eva, they still have a hand trap, and the amount of recovery this deck has from the grave is absurd. I mean, being able to go into new Beta Fafnir and also getting Meteonis back from grave and going into all those Drytron monsters from the grave by just top decking one Drytron monster on one Ritual monster is absolutely ridiculous. The deck can do so much, and I think it's going to be a really good deck. So if you think that you're going to be playing in a highly competitive format, then get your draws ready, because you're going to need it. It's the only card that can potentially put an end to this deck's turn, because anything else doesn't really do much. Even if you hand drop Diviner and they don't get into Beatrice, there's still a really good chance that they will be able to go into Ultimateness, and the deck being able to main deck Lancia so freely just because it's a fairy, so even if it's useless against the matchup they play, they can just discard for Ultimateness, means that it's going to have a really good counter for decks like Dogmatica and Sadol, Invoked, for decks like Brigade. I mean, the deck can do so much. Even against Dinosaurs, being able to Lancia means that no UCT and no Misk. So the deck can do so much. It can main deck the correct hand traps for the correct matchups, and it's just such a good deck. So be on the lookout for this. You're gonna see it pretty much the most out of any other deck. And maybe the only thing that's the saving grace for this deck that you won't be seeing it too much is because it's super expensive, but still people are gonna play it. So yep, that's the list, guys. I think that we're going to get into an even more healthier format than we used to, because even though we said that the previous format was really good, Dragon Link was like just so annoying because we've been seeing it for so long, and now that Konami finally decided to put the hammer on LP, and of course also hit Striker Dragon as well just for an assurance strategy, I think that is just going to be such a great thing that this happened, and we're going to enjoy an even better game. And we should enjoy this kind of format for as long as we possibly can, because you never know when the next Tier 0 deck is going to come out, because Konami likes money, so they're going to make something really broken eventually. So we just enjoy this while it lasts. So yep, that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below any other ideas you have for decks that are going to be really good for the upcoming format, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.